Hi, I'm Christina Harmon, a local real estate agent here in Orange County. Today I'm sitting with Maggie Minhas, a photographer and DIY blogger, to get her tips on design and DIY so we can share a little bit more with you guys to see if it's something that you can apply. Maggie, welcome.
Oh, thanks so much for having me.
All right, well, let's get started with some of your designer tips. Maggie, tell me a little bit about what you thought when you first saw this property and kind of how you got it to where it is today.
When we walked into this house, we were not sure at all that this was the right fit for us. My husband especially was very skeptical that this could become what we wanted it to be. But we live in Orange County and prices are so high. And so sometimes if you want something with a little bit of a bigger lot, you have to make the inside what you want it to be. So I remember my husband, when he first walked in, he said, I don't know, the layout feels so choppy. And I realized later it's not that the layout is choppy, it's that from the front door you could see 5 different types of flooring. So that was kind of what we started with. A lot of the house was very original to 1968, and some of it had been updated later in the 80s and 90s, but it was all still pretty dated. So we knew that we wanted to make a pretty large renovation at first and then continue on to make small renovations as we went.
Awesome. And what was kind of the first step? Did you do a full renovation and then get into your DIY later, or?
Yeah, so we renovated a lot of the surfaces of the home. So we did the kitchen and the bathrooms, and then we did the floors, base case, moldings, doors, all of kind of the outside features. We also had to replumb the entire house, which was an unexpected expense. So by the time that we got done with that, we kind of had the shell of what we wanted, and it definitely was an improvement. We opened up some walls and made it a little bit more of that open concept that we were looking for. But now that budget has been spent, and so we are kind of more in a DIY phase and adding our own accents and kind of taking ownership of the things that we have left to do.
Awesome. I guess in terms of design, because I know you've done such an incredible job with this aesthetic.
Oh, thank you.
Now it's that, very bright and boho modern farmhouse that everybody is really looking for these days. Yeah. And I know it wasn't that to start. What do you think made the biggest impact in terms of just getting those clean lines or figuring out those finishes?
I'd say for sure because I wanted it to be totally open concept. I was hoping that we could just have this be all one big great room. But the wall that runs down the center of the house is literally holding up the entire house. So that was impossible. But just by opening up doorways by a few feet really made a huge difference and really made it feel more expanded.
That's a great tip.
And then also just paint. It's amazing when you go into a house and you just blast the entire thing with white paint, how fresh and clean and modern it looks. And it really kind of takes everything to one cohesive look. We did a few accent walls, and we even did some millwork, trim work that's also white in a different finish, just in a semi-gloss, but it just makes a huge difference as far as kind of making it look finished and polished, but still all cohesive and really bright and clean. So when it had been painted, we walked in and it was incredible, the difference.
Awesome. I always tell my clients, once this home is painted, you will completely feel totally differently in here.
Yes.
And so I feel like those are a couple things that were most important. There any places that you kind of gleaned design inspo from, or did you already have all of that like deep within you that you knew the creative process?
Yeah.
Or did you need some help?
Well, we had been looking for a house for a while. I think we'd been kind of not seriously looking, but it had been on our radar for about a year. So during that time, I just had 1 million Pinterest boards. I was following only home people on Instagram. There is so much inspiration online now. And people who are providing free content in a way that you used to have to pore over magazines. You'd get 12 subscriptions and be leafing through, which is what I saw my mom do when I was little. But now it's all so available. And same with YouTube. There's things that we have never done before that you can go on YouTube and figure out how to do in 30 minutes. So it's really nice because even on YouTube too, they're addressing even the problems that they had. So it's not like HGTV or something where everything's very polished and put together and it's just kind of this perfect process. When you look on YouTube, somebody's like, oh, well, I tried this and it didn't work. And so you kind of skip over a lot of that mistake period that you would do if you had just done it yourself.
Wonderful. I feel like your aesthetic is so streamlined. Is that something that you were kind of looking for? I know a lot of my clients find it's really hard because they're different styles they're really into. They don't really know how to make the house all, look the same. And I think that's what is the standout here. We're rolling through a lot of photos in this video so that everyone can kind of see how you took that palette throughout the house. And it started to become this model piece that we can really, glean so much inspiration for.
Yeah, I definitely feel like it made it so much simpler to have a really neutral palette and to kind of have a color scheme that I wanted to stick with. Because even if you get in the mood for pops of color, that can be done in such an easy way. So the pieces that we have here that are stationary, that are staying, big pieces of furniture, things that we've invested in, are all neutral. And then we just can add things that are a little bit more trendy to them, and it's not such a big investment. I like to do throw pillows pillows in pops of color. We have a few accent walls. My son, who, I have to cater to kids also, which is a little bit tricky to stick to that same aesthetic, but also have it apply to kids and be playful and fun. So my son wanted an accent wall in his room, and he wanted a little bit more flair. And so he has a blackboard and batten wall behind his bed, and he loves that. It kind of is his own personal style. So I think that as long as you stick to one palette and you have a really clear idea going in of what you want, it's very simple now to make some easy design boards. So anybody can do that at home. You can kind of just pull pictures that you like and put them together, even in kind of a clip art fashion. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. And you can see pieces together. And that's gonna help you only buy things that you really love and not kind of go out and just piecemeal collect things. Because I think that's what I used to do when I was younger. I think I would see something and be like, oh, this is cute, and not really have a vision for where it was supposed to go.
Exactly.
And then everything looked a little bit more eclectic than I wanted it to. So now having a clear vision before you start can really help streamline things.
That's such a fantastic tip. I think just like you mentioned, home prices here in Orange County are so high that especially once, homeowners are buying that property, and it was almost a stretch for them, finding design inspiration is so important on their own without paying it for a designer if they can't quite get to that place. And also DIY projects, which I feel like has been so stunning following your blog. There's a few things in particular I feel like at this property you've been able to kind of do to make a huge impact. Can you share a few of those things that you did and kind of how you got started?
Yeah, so even though the inside there had been a lot done to it, the outside we hadn't touched. And I had never done anything outside with landscaping before, and I think I probably thought I needed to hire a professional. But with what we wanted to do, it was simple to kind of go out. I did some basic research about what plants would be best here, which would thrive, and kind of give me that modern look that I was looking for. And I was able to just replant all the planters. Our front porch was like an old dingy cement. A larger project would have been to maybe build a whole new wood porch. But when you get to the point where you're, kind of trying to streamline your budget and not spend a ton of money on everything, there's really a lot of easy fixes that can be done. So we ended up painting the front porch with porch paint. A gallon of porch paint costs less than $50, and the finish turned out great. It can be hosed off, and it's bright and light out there. Gorgeous. It made a huge difference. So, we put a porch swing out there, these little accents that kind of just personalize the outside of your home. We did new house numbers. I always tell people to get new house numbers because it makes a huge difference. So the outside ended up being that way perfect. We also built a faux fireplace in our living room, which kind of gave the whole room a focal point that it didn't have before. So initially we had looked into running the gas line over there and putting in a real fireplace. And it was going to be $3,000 just to run the gas line, plus the construction costs of putting in the fireplace, which obviously I couldn't do myself. Maybe I'd be able to, but it'd be a little bit tricky.
Would, but yes, most people would.
It'd be a little bit tricky to install a gas fireplace, but it could be done. But that is a high ticket item. So I take something that I love the look of and I try to make it in a really accessible way. So for us, we built a faux fireplace. It had the design look that I wanted. It had kind of the streamlined white kind of classic herringbone look that I wanted, and it brings your eye to something in the room, which it didn't have before. And it was a really cost-effective project. It took us a few weekends, and we love how it looks. So it's funny, just these things that you can kind of take and twist to be a little bit more cost-effective and still get the same look.
Awesome. I think another really neat thing that you did was your backyard. I remember watching you painting that fence, even with the kids, you got them involved, which I feel like became such a family process, and it seems to make things that much more meaningful because you all did it together. And it looks incredible.
That's for sure. I mean, I think that when you first start a DIY project, your kids coming in can seem like a disruption, but just giving them a job, I think a lot of people are scared to let them go near paint or let them go near anything. And certainly there's environments where that would be trickier. But when I was working on the backyard, they wanted to be a part of it. They wanted to join in, and now they feel a sense of ownership. My 4-year-old tells people, I painted that fence. When it's like Tom Sawyer and Huck Finn. I was just having everybody out there painting.
Awesome to watch.
And that's the thing. So I go on Instagram, I literally type in #blackfence, and I'm looking at all these pictures of black fences, and I just save them and kind of let it marinate. And it's almost like trying it out in your own backyard, because you can look at all these different things and kind of get the image of what it's going to look like. So we have, I don't even know how many linear feet of fence, probably 80, and a long, maybe even more than that, a long linear amount of feet of fence, and so to replace it would have been very expensive. And even painting it actually ended up being a little bit more than I expected it to be, and a little bit more time than I expected it to be. But now it looks great, and it's so modern, and I didn't have to rebuild it, and I really saved money that way. We built our own deck outside, so we just did a simple platform deck that's really added that wood element, which kind of warms up the whole space because it was a lot of concrete before. I replanted the planters back there as well, and then painted the outside cement pad white also. And then we just built some cedar. We built cedar planters out there just using cedar fence boards. So those fence boards are $3 or $4 at Home Depot, and you can just get a stack of them. They're safe outside to use, and you can make them into anything. So there's a lot of materials that if you look online and kind of get some ideas from, things that you'll start to take a second look at things you never would have before.
Such great advice. So as we wrap up, Maggie, if there are any people out there that are ready to take on a DIY project themselves, are there a few things they can kind of take away?
Yes, I'd say the key is to just kind of get started. So, I think a lot of women wait for their husbands to take on projects, and you could be waiting until you die.
Yes.
So instead of that, I think that it's really important to kind of take a sense of fearlessness about it. You don't have to start with something enormous. You can start with something small. It's really fun to paint a table that you find on Craigslist, or to, redo a little bookcase and put some wallpaper in the back. Something that's super simple, but is something that you can look at and feel accomplished and kind of gain confidence in the next thing. It's funny because a lot of my friends who have seen the blog say, "Oh, I love your projects, but then when I see you start to use tools, you kind of lose me." And they're intimidated just by the use of the tools. And to be fair, I grew up with a single mom, but I watched my mom just kind of take projects on. She rebuilt our kitchen cabinet, she rewired our house, and she did it. I mean, she literally sat there with a book open and just taught herself. And it kind of taught me not that you have to be perfect at everything, but just to try it and see how it turns out. And it can always be fixed. To have someone come in and finish a job might be still less expensive than it was for you to start it. So, I think that there's a lot of just kind of taking the initiative and being confident in yourself. You do need some simple tools, and I think that you should start out with you can even Google, tools to start, beginner toolkit, and see the easiest things to get. The simplest saw for what you're trying to do, the simplest, power screwdriver, and just get a few things. And you'd be surprised you actually don't need that much to be able to build almost anything that you want to build. And I'll also say have a space set up. So I know this applies to every hobby that I have, every chore that I have. If I have to get everything out and do it, I'm never going to do it. So just designate, just pull a little corner of the garage for yourself. Buy an old table. We have a workbench in the garage that's actually a dining room table that we were going to sell on Craigslist for $40. And instead we thought, let's just put this in here. And so now we have this huge table to work on. So it doesn't have to be a professional setup for you to get the results that you want to. And just try it. There's nothing that can be undone. It's paint. It's, nobody's trying to do plumbing or electrical probably. Those are skilled things. But anything that you're trying to do, just give it a try and see how it turns out. And I think you'll be surprised.
Maggie, thank you so much for sharing with us. Your designer and DIY tips are completely priceless. So I really appreciate it. Hopefully you guys got some great information too. Follow her blog, Maggie Minhas at Home, and we will see you in the next episode.
Thanks so much.